Welcome to ancient Rome on the evening of March the 14th in the year 44 before Christ. Tonight, we journey back through time to witness the final peaceful hours of one of history's most remarkable figures. Julius Caesar, dictator of Rome, conqueror of Gaul, and the man who crossed the Rubicon, rests in his home near the Roman Forum, unaware that tomorrow will bring the Ides of March. As twilight settles over the 7 hills of Rome, the great city begins its transition from day to night. The sounds of commerce fade from the Forum Romanum. Merchants pack away their wares. Citizens make their way home through narrow streets lit by flickering oil lamps. In the distance, the gentle lapping of the Tiber River provides a constant, soothing rhythm to the eternal city. Tonight, we walk beside history itself, observing the quiet moments before one of the most pivotal days in human history. Close your eyes and let yourself drift back to this ancient world, where marble gleams in torchlight and the weight of an empire rests upon the shoulders of one man. The house of Gaius Julius Caesar stands on the Via Sacra, the sacred way, in the heart of Rome. Archaeological evidence tells us this was no ordinary home, but rather the official residence of the Pontifex Maximus, Rome's chief priest. The building itself speaks of power and tradition, its walls having witnessed countless ceremonies and state functions over the generations. As the sun sets on this March evening, gentle light filters through the open courtyard of Caesar's Domus. The atrium, with its traditional rectangular pool, reflects the golden rays that slant through the compluvium above. Water trickles softly from a fountain, its sound echoing gently off the marble walls decorated with frescoes depicting scenes from Roman mythology and Caesar's own victories in Gaul. The scent of burning cedar drifts through the evening air, mixed with the aroma of cooking food from the kitchen quarters. Olive oil lamps begin to flicker to life throughout the house, their warm glow casting dancing shadows on the plastered walls. The floors, inlaid with intricate mosaics, tell stories of gods and heroes under the feet of servants who move quietly about their evening duties. In the tablinum, Caesar's private study, papyrus scrolls lie carefully arranged on wooden shelves. Maps of the Roman world cover one wall, marked with the territories he has conquered and the campaigns he has fought. Styluses and wax tablets rest on a mahogany desk, the tools of administration for an empire that spans from Britain to Egypt. The evening air carries the familiar sounds of Rome settling into night. From the nearby forum comes the distant echo of the final merchants calling out their wares. Cartwheels rumble over stone streets as goods are transported through the city before the nighttime ban on wheeled traffic takes effect. Dogs bark in the distance, and occasionally the sound of laughter drifts from neighboring houses where families gather for their evening meal. Caesar's household slaves move efficiently through their evening routines, their soft footsteps barely audible on the marble floors. They light more lamps, tend to the braziers that will keep the house warm through the cool March night, and prepare for the evening rituals that mark the end of another day in the greatest city the world has ever known. After a long day of receiving petitioners and conducting the business of empire, Caesar has returned to his private quarters. Plutarch tells us that Caesar was a man of refined habits, careful about his personal appearance and mindful of the dignity his position required. This evening, like so many others, he follows the rituals that have become second nature to him. In his private chambers, Caesar removes the purple-striped toga that marks his status as dictator. The garment, heavy with its weight of authority, is carefully folded by his personal attendants. The gold laurel wreath that has become his constant companion is placed gently on a wooden stand crafted specifically for this purpose. For a moment, freed from these symbols of power, he is simply a man of 55 years, bearing the accumulated wisdom and weariness of a lifetime spent in service to Rome. Caesar moves to his private bath, a luxury that reflects both his status and the Roman dedication to cleanliness. The water, heated by hypocaust systems beneath the floor, steams gently in the marble basin. As he bathes, he may reflect on the events of recent months. The historians Suetonius and Plutarch record that he had been receiving warnings about potential dangers to his life. Yet tonight there is no urgency in his movements, no sense of impending doom. The water is scented with oils from across the empire, perhaps rose oil from Damascus or lavender from the hills of Gaul that he conquered not so long ago. As he relaxes in the warm bath, steam rises around him, creating an almost dreamlike atmosphere in the lamplight. The sound of water gently lapping against the sides of the bath mingles with the distant sounds of the city beyond his walls. After bathing, Caesar is attended by his personal slaves who oil his skin with fine unguents and help him into a simple white tunic for the evening. His thinning hair is carefully arranged. Contemporary accounts suggest he was quite conscious of his baldness and took care to comb his hair forward in a way that concealed it. The laurel wreath he so often wore served not just as a symbol of his victories, but also as a practical means of covering his receding hairline. As Caesar walks through his house this evening, he may pause to examine the various treasures that fill his home. Statues from Greece stand in carefully arranged niches. Painted pottery from Gaul serves as reminders of his military triumphs. Silver vessels gleam in the lamplight, their surfaces reflecting the flickering flames. Each object tells a story of conquest, of diplomacy, of the vast network of relationships that bind the Roman Empire together. The dictator moves with the confident stride of a man accustomed to command, yet there is something contemplative about his demeanor tonight. Perhaps he is thinking of the massive infrastructure projects he has planned for Rome, the new forum that bears his name, the expansion of the city's boundaries, the legal and calendar reforms that will outlast even the empire itself. The Julian calendar, his innovation, will continue to govern the lives of people for millennia to come. In his private study, Caesar may spend time with his correspondence. Letters arrive daily from every corner of the empire, reports from governors, requests from allies, intelligence from his network of informants. Papyrus crackles softly as he unrolls scroll after scroll, the reed pen scratching gently against the surface as he makes notes or dictates responses to his secretaries. To understand this peaceful evening, we must appreciate the extraordinary man who occupies this house. Gaius Julius Caesar, born into an ancient patrician family that claims descent from the goddess Venus herself, has lived a life that reads like legend. Historian Plutarch tells us that Caesar conquered 3 million enemies during his campaigns in Gaul, bringing vast territories under Roman control and filling Rome's treasury with unprecedented wealth. The path that brought Caesar to this evening has been one of relentless ambition and brilliant strategy. In his youth, he served as a priest of Jupiter, survived the proscriptions of the dictator Sulla, and even spent time as a captive of pirates, an experience he turned to his advantage by raising a fleet and capturing his former captors. Every challenge seemed only to strengthen his resolve and sharpen his political instincts. The formation of the first triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus marked Caesar's entry into the highest levels of Roman politics. This unofficial alliance allowed the 3 most powerful men in Rome to dominate the state for their mutual benefit. Caesar's consulship in 59 BC secured him the governorship of Gaul, and with it, the opportunity that would define his legacy. For 8 years, Caesar campaigned across Gaul from the Rhine to the Atlantic, from the Alps to the English Channel. His commentaries on these wars, written in his characteristic third-person style, describe battles fought in fog-shrouded forests and assaults on fortified towns perched on hilltops. The siege of Alesia, where the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix made his last stand, demonstrated Caesar's tactical genius and secured Roman dominance over the region for centuries to come. But it was Caesar's decision to cross the Rubicon River with his army in 49 BC that truly changed the course of history. By entering Italy under arms, he defied the Roman Senate and initiated a civil war that would tear the Republic apart. Suetonius records that as Caesar stood on the banks of that small river, he quoted a line from the Greek playwright Menander, "Let the die be cast." Those words echoed across the centuries as the moment when the Roman Republic began its transformation into an empire. The civil war that followed saw Caesar's seasoned legions triumph over Pompey's forces across the Mediterranean world. From Spain to Egypt, from Macedonia to North Africa, Roman fought Roman while Caesar pursued his former ally and friend. The decisive battle at Pharsalus in 48 BC broke Pompey's power, leading to his eventual murder on the shores of Egypt, a death that Caesar himself lamented, having hoped to show mercy to his defeated rival. Now, 5 years later, Caesar stands as Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. This title, granted by a compliant Senate just months ago, represents the culmination of his political evolution from Republican magistrate to virtual monarch. The Roman Republic, which had governed Rome for nearly 5 centuries, exists now more in name than in substance. Real power rests in the hands of one man, and that man sits this evening in a house on the Via Sacra, reviewing the business of empire. Caesar's reforms as dictator have been sweeping and progressive. He has reorganized the calendar, replacing the old lunar system with a solar one that more accurately tracks the seasons. He has settled his veterans in colonies throughout the empire, extending Roman citizenship to communities in Gaul and Spain. The size of the Senate has been increased to include men from across the Roman world, diluting the power of the old aristocratic families who have traditionally dominated the state. Yet with all his achievements, Caesar remains a man of simple tastes in many ways. He drinks his wine well diluted with water, as was the Roman custom. He enjoys the theater and has a particular appreciation for Greek literature and philosophy. His personal library contains works by the great historians and poets of the past, and he is himself an accomplished writer whose prose style will be studied by students for generations to come. As evening deepens over Rome, Caesar's wife Calpurnia makes her way through the house, overseeing the preparations for the evening meal. Calpurnia Pisonis, daughter of Lucius Calpurnius Piso Caesoninus, has been Caesar's wife for 15 years now, having married him during his consulship when she was just 17 years old. Their marriage, like many among the Roman elite, began as a political alliance but has grown into a partnership marked by mutual respect and genuine affection. Historical sources describe Calpurnia as a woman of virtue and intelligence, one who has navigated the complexities of being married to Rome's most powerful man with grace and dignity. Unlike Caesar's previous wife Pompeia, whose involvement in a religious scandal led to their divorce, Calpurnia has maintained an impeccable reputation. She understands the delicate balance required of a Roman matron, being influential without appearing to seek power, being supportive without being subservient. Tonight, Calpurnia moves through the house with the practiced efficiency of a woman who has managed a great household for many years. She consults with the head cook about the evening's menu, ensures that the proper wines have been selected, and checks that the dining couches have been properly arranged in the triclinium. The evening meal in a Roman household of this status is a carefully orchestrated affair, especially when the master of the house is the dictator of Rome. The servants respond to her directions with the respect due to the mistress of the house. In Roman law, wives like Calpurnia have significant authority over household affairs, and their word carries the weight of their husband's power. She manages not just the domestic staff, but also oversees the education of young relatives, the distribution of charity to clients and petitioners, and the social obligations that come with Caesar's position. As she passes through the house, Calpurnia may pause at the household shrine, the lararium, where the family's protective gods are honored. Small bronze figurines of the lares and penates stand in their niches, surrounded by offerings of wine, honey, and flowers. The flame of the eternal fire flickers steadily, tended throughout the day by devoted servants. For a moment she may offer a silent prayer for her husband's safety and the continued prosperity of their household. The relationship between Caesar and Calpurnia is one of the more stable aspects of the dictator's life. While Caesar's affairs with other women, including the famous Cleopatra, are well known throughout Rome, Calpurnia has maintained her dignity and her position with remarkable composure. Roman wives of the aristocratic class understand that their husbands' political and personal lives often require such arrangements, and they focus their energy on maintaining their own honor and the honor of their family. Tonight, as on most evenings, Calpurnia ensures that everything is prepared for Caesar's return from his public duties. Fresh tunics are laid out in his chambers. The bath is heated to the perfect temperature. Oil lamps are filled and trimmed to provide steady light throughout the evening. Flowers from the house's garden, perhaps roses or violets, are arranged in silver vessels to perfume the air with their gentle fragrance. The domestic routine of Caesar's household reflects the orderly rhythm that governs all aspects of Roman life. Meals are served at appointed hours. Religious observances mark the passage of days and seasons. The household accounts are meticulously maintained, recording everything from the purchase of grain for the kitchen to the wages paid to various craftsmen who maintain the house's marble floors and painted walls. As Calpurnia moves through these familiar routines, she embodies the ideal of Roman womanhood: competent, dignified, devoted to family and household gods. Her presence brings a sense of stability and continuity to a house that often buzzes with the urgent business of empire. In her careful management of domestic affairs, she creates a peaceful refuge where even the most powerful man in the world can find respite from the burdens of command. As darkness settles over Rome, the household prepares for cena, the main meal of the day. In Caesar's house, this evening ritual is conducted with all the ceremony befitting the dictator's status, yet it maintains the essential character of a Roman family gathering. The triclinium, or dining room, has been prepared with meticulous care. 3 couches are arranged around a square table, following the traditional layout that gives the room its name. The couches themselves are works of art, their frames carved from fine wood and inlaid with ivory and precious metals. Soft cushions covered in silk from distant lands provide comfort for the diners, who will recline on their left sides while eating, leaving their right hands free to select food from the dishes placed before them. This reclining position, so strange to modern sensibilities, is as natural to Romans as sitting in chairs would be to later generations. Oil lamps cast a warm golden light throughout the room, their flames reflected in the polished surfaces of silver serving vessels. The walls are decorated with frescoes depicting mythological scenes, perhaps the triumph of Bacchus or Venus rising from the sea, honoring Caesar's claim of descent from the goddess. The floor, paved with intricate mosaics, shows scenes of abundance: fish swimming among seagrasses, birds perched on flowering branches, cornucopias spilling forth the fruits of the earth. The meal begins, as is proper, with a libation to the gods. Caesar, as paterfamilias and Pontifex Maximus, pours a small amount of wine onto the floor while murmuring a prayer for the protection of his household and the continued favor of the divine powers. This simple ritual connects the evening's meal to the sacred order that Romans believe governs all aspects of life. The first course, the gustatio, consists of light appetizers designed to stimulate the appetite. Eggs, prepared in various ways, appear on the table, perhaps stuffed with spiced fish paste or simply boiled and seasoned with silphium, that precious spice from North Africa. Olives from groves across the Mediterranean glisten in their oil, some stuffed with almonds, others preserved in brine flavored with fennel and coriander. Fresh bread, baked that very afternoon in the house's own ovens, releases its weedy fragrance when broken. The wheat itself may have come from the fertile fields of Sicily or the Nile Delta, transported to Rome by the vast network of ships that keep the capital supplied. Honey from Attica, prized for its delicate flavor, sweetens various dishes and provides a counterpoint to the sharp tang of aged cheese from the hills of Gaul. Fish, that staple of Roman cuisine, appears in multiple forms. Perhaps there is fresh sea bass, caught that morning in the Tyrrhenian Sea and rushed to Rome's markets while still firm and sweet. Pickled tuna from the distant reaches of the Atlantic provides a more intense flavor, while tiny silver fish preserved in their own oil offer bursts of concentrated essence of the sea. The conversation during the meal flows as smoothly as the well-diluted wine. Caesar, known for his wit and learning, may discuss the Greek historians he has been reading or share observations about the customs of the various peoples he encountered during his campaigns in Gaul. He speaks of the Druids with their mysterious forest sanctuaries, of the fierce warriors who painted their faces blue before battle, of the intricate metalwork and beautiful enameled jewelry created by craftsmen in distant Britain. Calpurnia contributes her own insights, perhaps sharing news from her network of female correspondents throughout the empire. Roman women of her class maintain extensive correspondence with relatives and friends in the provinces, creating an informal intelligence network that often provides information unavailable through official channels. She may mention a wedding in Athens, a new temple being built in Alexandria, or concerns about the grain supply from Egypt. The servants move quietly around the room, refilling wine cups, replacing empty dishes with new courses, ensuring that everything proceeds smoothly. Their training is evident in the way they anticipate the diner's needs without being intrusive. Water mixed with rose petals appears when needed for washing fingers between courses. Napkins of finest linen are discreetly provided and replaced. As the meal progresses through its various courses, the atmosphere becomes increasingly relaxed. This is the time when the business of the day gives way to more personal reflection. Caesar may speak of his plans for the city's development, his vision of new aqueducts and public buildings that will serve future generations. Or he might turn to more philosophical matters, discussing the nature of fate and fortune with the educated perspective of a man who has read deeply in both Greek and Latin literature. As the evening meal draws to its close, the conversation may turn to topics that have been weighing on the minds of those in Caesar's inner circle. Historical sources tell us that in recent weeks, various warnings and strange omens have been reported throughout Rome. While Caesar himself maintains the rational skepticism of an educated Roman aristocrat, the accumulation of these portents has created an atmosphere of unease among his household and supporters. Suetonius records that a haruspex named Spurina had warned Caesar to beware of danger that would not pass until the Ides of March had ended. These Etruscan priests, who divine the future from the entrails of sacrificed animals, hold considerable influence in Roman society despite the growing popularity of Greek philosophy and science. Their warnings carry weight even among the most sophisticated Romans, touching something deep in the collective memory of the people. The soothsayer's warning was not the only unusual occurrence. Just weeks before, during the festival of the Lupercalia, Mark Antony had placed a diadem on Caesar's head while both men stood before a crowd in the Forum. Caesar's rejection of this symbol of kingship had been met with applause, but the very fact that such a gesture had been made public created ripples of tension throughout the city. Some saw it as a test of public opinion. Others viewed it as a dangerous provocation of those who still cherished republican traditions. More recently, there had been the incident with the statue. Tribunes had discovered a royal diadem placed on Caesar's statue in the Forum Romanum. Their prompt removal of this symbol of monarchy was widely praised, but questions remained about who had placed it there and why. Caesar himself suspected the tribunes of arranging the entire affair to enhance their own reputations, but the episode added to the general atmosphere of uncertainty that seems to hover over the city like morning mist over the Tiber. In the quieter moments of the evening, as servants clear away the remnants of the meal and the oil lamps burn lower in their holders, these concerns may surface in the conversation. Calpurnia, with the intuition that comes from years of living at the center of Roman politics, has perhaps noticed subtle changes in the behavior of some of Caesar's associates. Certain senators who once sought audiences eagerly now seem distant. Messages that once arrived with flattering frequency have become fewer and more formal. There are also the more mundane but troubling signs that those close to power learn to read. Freedmen and slaves, who often know the city's secrets before their masters do, speak in whispers about unusual meetings and late-night conferences among certain members of the Senate. The networks of information that connect every great household in Rome have been carrying rumors of discontent, though nothing specific enough to warrant direct action. Caesar, however, approaches these concerns with the pragmatic confidence that has carried him through decades of political and military challenges. He has disbanded his personal bodyguard, a decision that demonstrates either supreme confidence in his position or a calculated gesture of trust in the Roman people. Either way, it reflects his belief that a leader who rules through fear rather than affection has already begun to lose his authority. The dictator's attitude toward omens and warnings reflects the complex relationship between superstition and rationality that characterizes educated Romans of his era. While he performs the required religious observances with scrupulous care, he also maintains the skeptical outlook of a man trained in rhetoric and philosophy. He has seen enough of war and politics to know that human actions, rather than divine intervention, usually determine the course of events. As the evening progresses, these darker thoughts may surface only briefly before being pushed aside by more immediate concerns. There are still letters to dictate, reports to review, decisions to be made about tomorrow's agenda. The machinery of empire does not pause for omens or anxieties, and Caesar has never been a man to be paralyzed by uncertainty about the future. As the night deepens over Rome, Caesar prepares for rest in the quiet ritual that marks the end of each day. The household settles into its nocturnal rhythm as servants extinguish unnecessary lamps, secure the doors, and take up their stations for the night watch. The great house on the Via Sacra transforms from a center of imperial activity into a peaceful domestic sanctuary. In his private chambers, Caesar removes his evening tunic and allows his body servants to help him into a simple sleeping garment. The room, warmed by glowing braziers, provides a comfortable refuge from the cool March air. Soft woolen blankets, dyed in rich purples and blues, await on the bed with its carved wooden frame and rope supports. The mattress, stuffed with the finest wool and covered in linen sheets, represents the pinnacle of Roman comfort. Before retiring, Caesar may spend a few quiet moments in his private study, reviewing documents by the light of a single oil lamp. Perhaps he examines maps showing the planned Parthian campaign that is scheduled to begin in just 3 days. This eastern expedition, designed to avenge Crassus's defeat at Carrhae and extend Roman power to the Euphrates and beyond, represents the next great chapter in his military career. The preparations have been months in the making, with legions already assembled and supplies gathered for what promises to be Rome's most ambitious eastern campaign since the days of Alexander. Or he might turn to one of the scrolls containing Greek poetry or philosophy. Caesar, despite his reputation as a man of action, has always been drawn to literature and learning. His own writings, not just the military commentaries but also treatises on grammar and astronomy, reveal a mind that finds pleasure in intellectual pursuits even amid the demands of governing an empire. Tonight, perhaps, he reads a few lines from Homer, whose heroes he has long sought to emulate in his own quest for eternal glory. The soft scratch of reed pen on papyrus might mark a few final notes or observations before sleep. Caesar has always been meticulous about recording his thoughts and experiences, understanding that the written word provides the only reliable path to immortality. His commentaries on the Gallic Wars have already begun to shape how future generations will understand his achievements, and he continues to document the great events of his time with an eye toward posterity. From beyond the walls of the house come the muted sounds of Rome at night. The tramp of the urban cohorts on their patrols provides a steady rhythm of security. Occasionally, the call of a night watchman echoes through the streets as guards announce the passing hours. Dogs bark in the distance, and sometimes the sound of wheels on stone betrays a cart driver taking advantage of the nighttime lifting of the ban on wheeled traffic in the city center. Calpurnia, in her own chambers, may also be preparing for sleep, though historical sources suggest that this particular night brings her troubling dreams. The wives of powerful men often bear a special burden of worry, knowing that their husband's prominence makes them targets for both political enemies and personal rivals. Tonight, perhaps, she feels a particular unease, though she may attribute it to nothing more than the natural anxieties that come with living at the center of imperial power. The household slaves in their quarters throughout the house settle into their own rest. Some must remain alert through the night, tending the sacred fires that must never be allowed to die, watching for signs of fire or intrusion, ready to respond to any emergency that might threaten their master or his property. Their dedication reflects not just their legal obligations, but often genuine affection for the household that provides their livelihood and identity. As Caesar finally lies down on his bed, he may reflect on the extraordinary journey that has brought him to this moment. From his youth as a priest of Jupiter through his rise in the Roman political system, from his first military commands to his conquest of Gaul, from the crossing of the Rubicon to his position as dictator of the known world, each step has been both inevitable and miraculous, the result of careful planning, bold action, and the favor of fortune. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and opportunities. The Senate will meet as scheduled to discuss various matters of state. There are decisions to be made about the Eastern campaign, appointments to confirm, petitions to hear from citizens and allies throughout the empire. It is the routine business of governing, made significant only by the scope of Rome's power and the weight of historical precedent. In these final moments before sleep claims him, Gaius Julius Caesar lies in the quiet darkness of his chamber, surrounded by the accumulated treasures and comforts that mark his position as the most powerful man in the world. The soft glow of a single oil lamp provides just enough light to define the familiar shapes of his private sanctuary, the carved chest containing his most precious documents, the silver vessels that have accompanied him on campaigns across 3 continents, the simple bronze mirror that reflects a face known to millions throughout the empire. Outside, Rome sleeps fitfully under its blanket of night. In the insulae that house the city's masses, families huddle together for warmth and safety. In the great houses on the Palatine Hill, other members of the aristocracy rest in their own comfortable chambers, some perhaps dreaming of the opportunities that tomorrow might bring, others troubled by the same vague anxieties that seem to drift through the city like smoke from the eternal fires. The Tiber River continues its ancient flow toward the sea, carrying with it the daily offerings of 1 million people and the accumulated history of centuries. On its banks, the monuments and temples of Rome stand silent in the darkness, their marble facades pale under the stars. The Forum Romanum, still bearing the scars of reconstruction after years of civil war, awaits another day of the commerce and politics that drive the empire forward. Caesar's breathing grows deeper and more regular as sleep approaches. His body, still strong despite his 55 years, relaxes into the familiar comfort of his bed. The mind that has planned the conquest of nations, that has outmaneuvered rivals in the deadly game of Roman politics, that has composed literary works of enduring beauty, now prepares to surrender to the restorative power of rest. In the servant quarters, the night watch maintains its quiet vigil. Oil lamps burn steadily in their assigned places, casting small circles of light against the encompassing darkness. The household breathes in the rhythm of sleep, from the grandest chambers to the humblest sleeping alcoves. All is peaceful, all is secure, all is as it should be in the house of Caesar. This is the last night of peaceful sleep that Julius Caesar will ever know. Tomorrow, the Ides of March will bring with it a confrontation that will end not just his life, but an entire era of Roman history. But tonight, in these precious hours of quiet, he rests as simply a man who has lived fully and achieved greatly, surrounded by the love of his household and the security of his position. The oil lamp finally gutters and dies, leaving Caesar's chamber in complete darkness. Beyond the walls, Rome continues its eternal rhythm, unaware that tomorrow will mark the end of one chapter in its long story and the beginning of another. History holds its breath in the quiet hours before dawn, waiting for the sun to rise on the Ides of March. Sleep now, as Caesar sleeps, in the peaceful darkness of this final night. Let yourself drift into the same restorative rest that claimed the conqueror of Gaul, the crosser of the Rubicon, the man who became a god. In the morning, the world will be forever changed, but tonight all is quiet, all is peaceful, all is well. Rest now and dream of ancient Rome, eternal and magnificent, sleeping under the watchful stars.